you all for attending our webinar today. My name is Natalie Musa, and I'm going to run through a few housekeeping items before I introduce our speakers. The webinar itself will be no longer than 40 minutes, with 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions that you may have. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it in the questions box, and we will be sure to answer them during the Q&A period at the end of this presentation. Now I'm going to introduce one of our speakers for today, Tom Kersnick. He is Director of Big Data Solutions here at Pactera and has been working in the big data space since 2008. With that being said, I hope you all enjoy our webinar today, Transform Your Business with Big Data and Hortonworks. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. Today we're doing a joint webinar with Hortonworks. And our joint speaker today is Robbie Richardson from Hortonworks. He's the Enterprise Account Manager. And our topics today we're going to be discussing are the intro to Hortonworks, who is Hortonworks, the Enterprise Hadoop distribution of Hortonworks, the Enterprise generation of Hadoop 2.0, the Pactera intro, and then the big data initiatives associated to that. Robbie, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. And I also want to thank Natalie as well for the opportunity to be here presenting to the group today. Pactera is a great partner, so we really appreciate the opportunity. As Tom was mentioning, my name is Robbie Richardson. I'm a regional account director with Hortonworks. I work throughout the southeast and south central United States. And I'm going to take the next few minutes to really cover who Hortonworks is, what we do. We'll talk a little bit about, our Hortonworks data platform, what that is and what that encompasses, and then the next generation of Hadoop with Hadoop 2.0. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Hortonworks has a very rich heritage with Hadoop, and I think it's important to maybe take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about that history. As most of you may or may not know, Hadoop was actually created and developed going all the way back to really about 2005 at Yahoo when they were looking for a technology to allow them to better manage and store massive amounts of data that were the underpinnings of their primary technology, which was search. And out of that effort, the core engineering team really focused on developing the technology, and out of that effort came what we know of today as Apache Hadoop, with the core being what we'll talk about today, HDFS and MapReduce for storing and processing massive amounts of data. It was a very successful project, and in 2011, actually, with the blessing of Yahoo, the majority of that core engineering team actually left to form Hortonworks. So we have a very close relationship and history with Yahoo, such that they're also an investor, a customer, and a co-development partner today. So in 2011, with that core engineering team, Hortonworks was created, and with the focus really of driving Hadoop and the innovation to an enterprise-ready platform. So today, it's really clear. Our focus today is to develop, distribute, and support a 100% open source distribution of Apache Hadoop. Going back to that relationship with Yahoo, we employ the core architects and builders and operators of Apache Hadoop, and we continue to drive the innovation in the open source community today. We distribute the Hortonworks data platform, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. This is the only 100% open source end-to-end enterprise Hadoop distribution on the market, and we provide world-class support, training, and professional services to help organizations, design and deploy a big data strategy, including Hadoop at the core. And we feel like and we believe that we're uniquely qualified to help our customers just based on the fact that we've built out and managed some of the largest clusters in the world. And our approach is uniquely endorsed by some of the largest technology vendors in the marketplace today. You'll see Yahoo, which I just mentioned, Microsoft, which we'll talk a little bit more about today as well, companies such as Teradata and Rackspace. We have a very deep engineering relationship with these strategic partners, such that, for example, with Microsoft, we're deeply engineered to integrate with their entire business intelligence stack, and Microsoft is actually taking the Hortonworks data platform as the underpinnings for their Hadoop technologies and distributions moving forward. Next slide, Tom. So this slide represents just a sampling of some of the customers that we have throughout the country. We're very proud of the fact that, we were formed in 2011, so in a very short period of time, this is just a testament to our model, our approach, and our management team. So very recognizable customers that you see on this slide. And the key is that the majority of the customers here, are utilizing the full breadth of what Hortonworks brings to the table, from our distribution, support, training, and professional services. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what we deliver today. As I mentioned, we distribute the only 100% end-to-end Hadoop distribution, and we do that with the Hortonworks data platform. And this is, if you open up the hood, this slide illustrates the components of the Hortonworks data platform today. And I think it's important to note, how do we bring this together? And it's really pretty straightforward. All of the technologies, all the components that you see here within the distribution start out as open source projects. So we go and we determine which are the most stable versions of these projects, and we bring them essentially in-house. We take the most stable versions, bring them in-house, and test and harden the technology, and then we package and certify a distribution in the form of the Hortonworks data platform. And at the core, obviously, this includes the core Hadoop technology, MapReduce, and HDFS, but also related technologies that are really required by our enterprise users. And we contribute all of this coding, all of the bug fixes, et cetera, back to the open source community. So we really apply an enterprise software development process to harden the technology. the organizations today, they have very, explicit requirements, and they're a little bit different than, the typical web properties who first adopted Hadoop. And some of those requirements required by the community, we had to rethink the approach and how we could architect things to make them better. So some of the critical features, are listed here. So for example, we'll talk about technologies such as Yarn and Hive running on a technology called TES, full stack high availability, more enhanced technologies around snapshots, disaster recovery, rolling upgrades, and more security. So we'll talk a little bit about a project called Knox and the Knox Gateway that simplifies security within Hadoop. So with 2.0, the key is we're taking Hadoop beyond just traditional batch processing and moving to more interactive, real-time or near real-time interaction for our customers. Next slide, Tom. So let's take a look at, going from the current version of the Hortonworks data platform to the next generation Hortonworks data platform 2.0. So you'll see, under the hood some new technologies that have been integrated into the distribution. And at the core, and this diagram represents the next generation Hortonworks data platform 2.0. And at the core, obviously, is HDFS. But Hadoop 2.0 is really designed to make Hadoop faster and more secure, and it's created to manage the resource needs across all uses. Ensures predictable performance, and quality of service for all applications, and it enables applications, and this is key, to run in Hadoop rather than simply on Hadoop, and this greatly speeds up the processing capabilities within Hadoop. So some of the new technologies that you see have been added, for example, Yarn at the core, TES and MapReduce, which are now running on top of Yarn. Up in the data services and operational services, you'll see Falcon for more enhanced management and job scheduling within the platform, and then under platform services, Knox for enhanced security. So let's talk about what some of these technologies are and what they bring to Hadoop 2.0. So with Yarn, and that stands for yet another resource negotiator, essentially Yarn separates the resource management from the processing components. And it provides a broader array of interaction patterns for the data in HDFS beyond just MapReduce. And what this does really is it streamlines MapReduce to do what it does best, which is processing data. And with Yarn, now you can run multiple applications in Hadoop, all sharing a common resource management. And then the next generation of Hive is built on Yarn and becomes, at that point in time, becomes part of the platform itself, essentially with the goal of making Hive run 100 times faster. TES essentially allows, in essence, Apache Hive and TIG, from a data services perspective, to also work faster, to meet the demands, if you will, of for faster response time. And it takes the speed of the workloads from a processing perspective by an order of magnitude. So essentially, TES eliminates Hive's latency and throughput constraints, that result from ultimately its reliance on MapReduce. So it optimizes Hive job execution, by eliminating unnecessary tasks. Real quick, Falcon, everybody's adopting Hadoop as a data processing platform, because it accepts any kind of data in raw format and it can process at almost any scale. So, as folks adopt Hadoop and throw all this data on, they start to find other challenges. How do I ensure the data is being processed reliable? How do you know, I'm not keeping data that's too old, or, if you're processing data globally, how do you deal with multi-data center replication? And Falcon solves this really by letting developers work at a much higher level of abstraction. Knox, real quick, is the next generation security added for Hadoop. And it really simplifies the security for both the users and operators. And it provides seamless access for users while securing the cluster at the perimeter and shielding, some of the intricacies of the security implementation itself. So users essentially see one cluster endpoint that aggregates the capabilities for, data access, metadata, and job control. And still while keeping, with the philosophy of running, on multiple operating system environments, multiple virtual environments, multiple cloud, cloud environments, and also from an appliance perspective. So this, again, this demonstrates or illustrates the next generation of Hadoop, the Hortonworks Data Platform 2.0, and the technologies that are going to be incorporated into that. And we'll see the release a little bit later on in the fall. Next slide, Tom. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a very deep engineering relationship with Microsoft, such that we have offices in Redmond. And this slide just illustrates where the Hortonworks Data Platform for Windows, which is a specific release to run on the Microsoft SQL environment. Essentially, we're at +1, in that environment. So, as traditional systems, ERP systems are providing data up to the SQL Server environment, Hortonworks fits into that and integrates into that environment, ingesting new sources of data, whether it be web logs or sensor data or social media, and is integrated with bidirectional connectors, for SQL Server and SQL Azure through a technology called Scoop. And from a business intelligence perspective, completely integrated with Microsoft's BI stack. So, for example, Excel, integration through Hive within the Hortonworks Data Platform. So we're very proud about our relationship with Microsoft. We've really seen a tremendous amount of interest from our customer community on this integration. So we just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. It's a very deep engineering relationship with Microsoft. Next slide, Tom. So finally, with a couple of more things that I wanted to mention, along with the continued development efforts and distributing the Hortonworks Data Platform, from a support perspective, Hortonworks is very focused on bringing customers up to speed and bringing the community up to speed on the usage of Hadoop. And with that, we've delivered the Hortonworks University, and this is a very expert source for Apache Hadoop training and certification. And we apply this training both in a public setting through the Hortonworks University and an on-site setting where we can go in and work with our customers and actually tailor very specific training to their environment and their end users. And this is very role-based, hands-on training with in all of our classes at least 50% lab time. And also from a next step, how do I get started perspective, a few months back we released what's called the Hortonworks Sandbox. So this is so essentially what the Hortonworks Sandbox is. You can go to hortonworks.com, and it's a full Hortonworks Data Platform installation that you can run, download in a virtual instance and run on your laptop. So it's a free download, and it's a very easy and fast way, for individuals to learn Apache Hadoop and actually do, some testing within Hadoop on your laptop. It has roughly about 11 tutorials that take you through various use case scenarios where it actually has sample data that you can run pig scripts across, for example, or Hive queries, and you can actually use it to, start ingesting some of your own data, once you've got up to speed on it. So it's a great way for customers to and individuals to get up to speed on Hadoop and the Hortonworks Data Platform. So I'll wrap it up with, again, Hortonworks, at the core, we have a very rich heritage with the development of Hadoop. We employ, a tremendous amount of committers. Actually, we have more committers, in the Apache Software Foundation than anyone else. We're very focused on the innovation of Hadoop moving forward, for example, with the technology that you saw in Hadoop 2.0. So we'll continue to lead that innovation at the core, addressing the needs of, our enterprise customers. And we'll continue to enable that ecosystem. It's our firm belief that, we're not coming in to rip and replace. It's a plus one, and it's very important that we integrate and interoperate with customers' existing data systems and business intelligence solutions, all the while maintaining, a 100% open source model. So that's an industry support, and also with a very flexible pricing model from a support perspective or a subscription perspective around that distribution. And you can find out more at Hortonworks.com, just a tremendous amount of information from a knowledge-based perspective, webinars, blogs, and that's also where you can go. I think there's a link here on this slide where you can go and actually download the sandbox. So I encourage all of you to do that. So with that, I hope that was, gave you a very high level of who we are, what we do today in terms of the Hortonworks data platform, where we're going with the next generation of Hadoop 2.0, and our release of HDP 2.0 later in the fall. Tom, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Robbie. That was great and definitely very informative. So we'll move on now to some more topics from the Pactera side. We're going to do the intro and then talk a little bit about what's going on out in the world of the big data ecosystems. So as everyone knows, big data is very critical these days. The lack of sharing data is definitely a huge obstacle when measuring marketing or ROI, or even just bottom line ROI for companies. I think it's very important that everyone understands that most companies are in the dark when it comes to looking at data across siloed information, let's say between finance or marketing or even IT. So you can see the percentages here that it's pretty relevant that, and especially dealing with the companies that we deal with here at Pactera, that companies are really trying to overcome that and move forward with a type of platform that allows them to visually, and not only visually see the data, but actually utilize the data across multiple verticals within a company. Next is what kind of initiatives are using big data? From our client aspect, we're seeing a lot of different types of modeling platforms and simulations, as well as algorithm direction heading. Another instance is fraud. That's becoming a big deal. So having not only the tie to social media, but as well as to the internal verticals that I mentioned, companies are able to understand like what's going on these days within, not only within the company, but how they compete against their competitors when it comes to marketing initiatives or modeling initiatives that take into place for new types of product scenarios. So what are the keys to a successful big data initiative? Well, the aspect here is that you have to look at both the short-term and the long-term type of measures and the value associated to each of them. The short-term is a quick win, I would say, with more of the modeling or the product initiatives. Trying out a particular project within the company is a big deal to see if this is going to work out for you. But the long-term value of a big data initiative is it's endless, right? Because when one project is successful or two projects are successful, there may be 3 or 4 that are not, but then there may be another 20 or 30 or 50 coming from various verticals that allow you to be successful with this implementation. And the one thing that I find very interesting is when we talk to clients is, what questions can you not answer today? That's usually our approach when we start pinpointing a way to help them with their big data initiatives. There's a lot of questions that come from C-level or even the management level that aren't necessarily being able to be determined from a structured type of ecosystem. Well, the big data ecosystem, as we all know, is semi or unstructured. So being able to tie that in and asking different types of questions helps with the bottom line and new revenue streams. Next is creating user-centric internal and external applications. This is such things as APIs, allowing data to your internal and external customers that you may have. Another one is creating interesting UIs that will show them different types of clustering and graphics that are associated to the data not only they've been looking at every day, but new data that's coming in that allows them to see the flexibility of, as I mentioned, marketing initiatives, A/B testing, simulations, etc. And the last but not least that everyone, at least most companies, are trying to do is predict the consumer, right? A big data ecosystem allows you more algorithm direction, more modeling directions, testing, and more testing. Keep in mind, if something doesn't work, tear it down and try a new one. It's not going to hurt. And that way you can keep pinpointing and defining what those models and what algorithms are really working, not only in finance and marketing, but even in IT or even with your external clients. Extremely important these days. As more data grows, then the more we realize what's happening with the consumer itself. Next is, how do we define big data ROI? Well, that's a really good question these days. First off, the one obstacle that we're seeing the most of is that there's not enough skilled resources for the adaptation of a big data ecosystem. Well, it's going to get easier, I promise, and this shouldn't be a scary scenario at all. This should be a chance for everyone to learn and to how to, advance their, not only in their career, but advance within the company itself on how you look at information. I mean, it's going to scale even more over the next 3 to 5 years, or X years actually, so we have to be ready for that. We have to be competent and be able to tackle it. Another obstacle is the traditional IT architectures cause limitations. Identifying the right technologies. I think we've all been down that path, right, where we think that we have the mothership that's going to answer anything and everything. Well, nowadays, I mean, with newer types of streams of data coming in, such as social or even mobile or even machine data, and trying to tie that to the bottom line, it's really important that we're able to take that on and understand it to an extreme detail. Another one is adapting to particular needs. A great example is this. Let's say that you're a bank and you were just told yesterday that we just bought 18 new banks and we need to start understanding their data tomorrow. Well, with a big data ecosystem, and especially with some environments such as Hadoop, it's just a file system. Bring the data in, then we can start analyzing it and start, adapting that to our current ecosystem, whether that be Teradata, DB2, whatever the flavor is. That way we can tie it all to the current reporting system so we can understand what that business is doing tomorrow and be ready for it. Next is assembling business use cases. This is going to change over time because the mere fact is everybody's used to a certain process that takes place. It's a structured schema environment, right? Well, now the business use cases are going to involve social data, machine data, as I mentioned, and other things. That's going to be a real big change in process internally and externally about how we look at information going forward. And as I mentioned before, silos is a really big deal. Everybody's used to their siloed information, their canned reporting that they have, adding new revenue streams, defining what those revenue streams are. It's a big ordeal. But it shouldn't be scary. It should be exciting because the mere fact is that we have an opportunity to learn more about the consumer and learn more about our business and driving to help revenue for the bottom line. Last is optimizing solutions. Strong internal use cases are going to be a huge big deal, as I mentioned before, in the assembling of business use cases. This not only applies to IT, but this also applies to external clients. How do we all drive and understand each other's data? And if we buy companies tomorrow, how do we understand that data immediately? Well, a Hadoop ecosystem and the Hortonworks platform, as mentioned by Robbie, this is a really good starting point for all of us. Last is the inability to effectively automate data. Everybody has an ETL process or an ELT process that loads data in. And there's a lot of questions on the time it takes to load that data into your current ecosystem with the structured data. Well, that should be not as big an issue anymore for you because with a Hadoop file system, the unstructured and semi-structured data can be at your choosing of how you want to load that. You can use your current ETL tool if you like, or you can come up with new types of solutions for streaming that could add more value and understand real-time information for your mobile devices, for your canned reporting, or even reporting that you're doing with graphing architecture such as R. So a lot of folks ask us out in the client field, what type of architecture is applied? Is this replacing our current architecture? Absolutely not. It's complementary to it. So one of the architectures, and we'll go in more detail over the use case that I've presented, is that, as you can see, excuse me, a lot of clients are very interested in getting closer to the real-time aspect of data. Well, with this architecture, as you can see, is the feeds on the left, such as your blog, your Yammers, your Facebook, mobile, etc. That data can come into a real type of environment. And in step three allows you to do algorithms against that type of data to determine if the proper outcomes are taking place, so you can build new products and revenue models from that data, from your slice that you're taking in. From that, you can go into your current ecosystem, which is listed in number 4, whatever your EDW flavor is, and then number 5 is the Hadoop ecosystem that allows you to store that data long-term and utilize a product such as Hortonworks to gather even more analytics and more input, output, ingestion, digestion from that data. And last but not least is the model, algorithms, simulations that can take place against that data, not only in real time, but also in the Hadoop environment, as well as your EDW environment. So the outcome in 7, 8, and 9 is great because you'll be able to use your casual user reporting tools that you have. Number 8 could be a power user who not only utilizes the Hadoop sandbox, but can also utilize the EDW structured data, and as well as try to derive models, algorithms, and simulations from both of those environments. And then number 9 is the outcome that allows you to react to social media type of information in a real-time, almost real-time fashion. Very important these days. I definitely see this as the overall model that a lot of companies are trying to fall into, because this will help them answer a lot of questions that can't be answered today. Next is the use case for the online travel company that we've been working with. This was posted on the Hortonworks blog a week ago. It's a similar type of use case, but we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about it today. So this particular client, we were determining the flight cost by variance determinations, okay? So what that means is that we were providing predictive analytics on how to increase and decrease prices based on consumer views, the marketing pricing out in the world, competitor pricing, the time that was associated to consumers looking at the data, and the actual availabilities of the flights. All this was coming into play not only from a streaming aspect, from your websites to the logs that were being generated from clients, the partner integrations that we're dealing with, as well as custom information that was coming through, such as Twitter and other things. All that was being simulated and utilized in an algorithm to determine what the proper cost or in decreasing the price or increasing the price at both levels. Then the downstream effect is the applications would be third-party vendors, internal applications. They would store the data long-term into Hadoop for year-over-year trending and year-over-year analysis to see if it improved last week versus this week, or last year versus 5 years ago. And then your traditional database, which would be your RDBMS system, and then the canned reporting aspect to that. And then the last part, which is my favorite, is the mobile aspect. Understanding how that can affect the mobile user, whether it be the consumer or the internal individual who's changing that pricing within the marketing department. Very exciting times, because the mere fact is you'll be able to tweak and pull data and make determinations quite quickly, and then not only that, but determine long-term effect and analysis associated to that data. So why is Hortonworks so important? In the last diagram, as you can see here, the fluctuation of a real-time in-memory solution and then the destinations on the right. There's a lot of wheels and monitors and knobs to turn to make this correct all the time. When you have an aspect such as yarn applied to this, it makes my life, and I know my customer's life, extremely easy to deal with a situation of this nature. So as this improves over time, it's going to be great because it's going to give a little bit more enterprise notion to this type of environment and the architecture that I provided you. And not only that, it's going to streamline a lot of aspects to this. You can still have your batch. You're going to be able to have your in-memory solutions, your graphing and everything. Yarn is a huge play into this because it's going to help me standardize and help understand all the types of aspects and possible solutions going forward for this environment. It's just going to make my life a lot easier, and I know my customers are very excited about it. So what is Pactera's big data capabilities? We're extremely focused right now on solution architecture, next generation analytics such as the models, algorithms, and simulations that I brought up, especially visualization as well. And then also we're going to be improving our operational ability, helping out with current investments that companies have with their current ecosystems as well as their big data ecosystems. And we're extremely moving towards the whole data scientists into the business transactions and encounters that are taking place every day. Your C-level execs and your managers and your directors, we're trying to bring the aspect to them that they can have the data scientist hat on, and they'll be able to understand. We're trying to create a more realistic environment and not a scary environment for them. And last but not least is we're working on new business processes, as I mentioned before. That's a really big deal, trying to help them understand not only their structured environment, but the unstructured environment, and tying those two aspects together and helping create a business process that they can use moving forward with both unstructured data and structured data. And last, we ask the right questions because we've been doing this a while, and that way we can help them understand and feel comfortable with the aspect of having multiple ecosystems. And how can we help you with big data? We offer this interesting workshop that handles both the executive and the technical level. We try to cover end-to-end management, solution architecture, as well as the executive aspect to this. Now keep in mind, this is custom, so if there's things that you are interested in that are not listed here, we'll be happy to help out with that. Well, I'd like to thank you very much and thank Robbie for his time. That was really great. There was some interesting Hadoop 2.0 aspect to that I'm definitely looking forward to. And thank you very much. Oh, and Natalie here is back with us from our marketing department. Thank you, Natalie, for doing this.
Thank you, Robbie and Tom. Now I'm going to go over a few questions that have come through online. If you have any questions, please type them in the questions box. The first question, Robbie, this looks like this might be for you. Can you provide some more information on the differences between HTTP 1.3 and HTTP 2.0?
Yeah, sure, Natalie, absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, obviously, Hadoop 2.0 contains yarn, and we talked a little bit about that, but there are, a few other additional changes we touched on. For example, Falcon, we touched on Tez and Knox. And really, Hadoop or HD 2.0 is really completely re-architected, to include non-MapReduce processing. And it also comes with, out of the box support, if you will, for securing Hadoop clusters, via Knox. We talked a little bit more about that, making it more secure, but also making it easier to secure. And with Falcon, the scheduler is much better, in that there are now, federated resource managers that, effectively, utilize the Hadoop cluster. So the resource managers, they know the RAM, the RAM information, that they can take advantage of. So those are just some of the some of the differences, if you will, between 1.3 and 2.0. But at the end of the day, it's more secure and much faster.
Thanks, Robbie. Another question that's come in regarding Pactera's workshop. Are the points that you listed in your slide, are those the only topics you cover? And how long is the technical workshop that you offer?
Yes, okay. As I mentioned, we customize the workshop towards your needs. We do have a big data questionnaire that we like folks to fill out. That gives us a pretty good idea of the topics that will be discussed. But yes, it can be customized definitely towards whatever the client is interested in having this discussion. The workshop usually lasts between 2 to 4 hours, depending on what the topics are. And yes, it can cover both the executive and technical levels.
Great, thanks, Tom. And another question, Robbie, if you want to touch on this, is HCP 2.0 essentially 2 releases for both Windows and Linux?
Good question, Natalie. Thank you. Actually, yes. So the Linux version of HCP 2.0 will actually be coming out, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a little later this year, a little later in the fall. And then the Windows version will looks like it has its release in first quarter 2014. So yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And our last question here on the line. You mentioned that you help clients with models, algorithms, and simulations. Is this custom, or are you using another application from a partner?
It really depends on what aspect is taking place with that. We have been doing a lot of custom modeling simulations and algorithms based on the environment, but as well as if a client is using a third-party type product such as Alpine Data Labs or something of that nature, then yes, I mean we will help them conform to that and use whatever is necessary to get the job done.
Great, thanks, Tom. This will conclude our Q&A session. If you would like a copy of the webinar, we will be posting it onto our Pactera US YouTube page later on today. And if you have any further questions, Tom's contact information and Robbie's contact information is on the screen if you would like to reach out to them. But thank you all for joining our webinar today. Hope you have a great afternoon.